Hello everyone and good morning. Welcome to May 25th, 2016. This is the PivotBoss Pre-Market Report. I'm Frank Ochoa, aka PivotBoss. Here's a look at the daily time frame of the ES. The previous session we saw significant strength. It was a clear program-driven trend day. Pretty much rallied significantly right to the top of value. The top of value here, and that's what we were looking for. So if you recall back when we were trading below 2030s here, I mentioned that price is now rotated lower in the trading room. I kept mentioning to our traders, don't get suckered in short below 31s because they were likely going to be used as fuel to rotate price back to the top of value between 77 and 80, and we saw that move materialize very, very nicely over the last several days, and then we finish it off with a significant high range day. Just a major trend event. Started off with failed range expansion below the 2044s, and then you saw a big slingshot move the opposite way. Just a huge move. What I mentioned before was that we weren't likely done with this trading range. When we talked about the rally from 1800 leading to 2061s, the expectation would be that we likely trade sideways heading into the summer. And so here we are, 2.5 months of sideways movement, and we still have only kind of created a converging type of range, compression range here. I believe that we likely see this range kind of open up a little bit. So we could be looking at a push toward recent highs, as a matter of fact. So the very first idea was that we'd likely move from 2030s up to 2077 to 2080, but by no means that could have been the end of the move. That was the primary move. We got to see how this thing's going to play out now. If price fails to hold above 2077s, then we could rotate back to 61s and 49s and back down. But holding above that zone would imply that we could see a push toward the highs here. And if we do get up toward 21.05, that could be an area to watch for rejection and bring it back to value. So keep an eye on this. This is where we got to see how this thing plays out above value here. In an intraday basis, here's the intraday. You can see how significant that intraday trend was the previous session, just a big time rally. Price pushes through 77s in overnight trading now. And this is what I mentioned yesterday was that in the trading room, if prices push beyond the previous high and start to see rejection, that could open up a move back down. But in this case, it didn't happen. It pushed up, it held right here, and continued pushing higher. And now here we are, 85. So still strong trending market. We have ETH VWAP at 2081s that is coming up below price. Keep an eye on that level there. Bulls want to defend between 80 and 81 for a continuation higher. We have a primary upside target on the day at 2092 half. The market has been averaging 25 points per day over the last 10 sessions. Right now we're at a 12-point range with overnight trading. That's only 47% of ADR. So if prices can hold the 2080s here, we could see a big push up or a continuation toward 2092 by the end of the day. Failure to hold 80 again would put pressure back on 77.5 and could rotate this thing back toward the 2071-72 zone. Okay, let's take a look at crude oil. Here's a daily time frame of crude oil. You can see we've been trending higher. I talked about before 47.46 being the level to hold. There's 47.46. That's the previous month's high on this contract. So when price pushed up, here it is. That was the defense, and we've seen it defend. However, there are now sell stops down below there as bulls continue to defend this area, and now they got to get paid. If there's a rejection up here, we could see the stops come out and test the next area of support down below, which is 44s. So it's going to be important. Anytime you get beyond range, we're beyond the previous month's high here. We get beyond range, and we start to form a little box. That tells us that bulls aren't getting paid. And if those bulls don't get paid and we see a rejection on 49.80 perhaps, we could see the stops come out. And again, we could be dropping back toward recent support at 44s. So keep an eye on this. Right now, we're bullish above the previous month's high. Bulls are defending. The stops are below. But if they don't get paid, those stops become vulnerable. All right, let's take a look at the intraday time frame. On an intraday basis, you can see here basically a big push up in overnight trading for crude oil. What we have right now is basically a pullback after price failed to hold above overnight value. So you can see right here 49.75 became value, and price has taken it offered and taken VWAP offered as well. So right now that could be indicative of a short-term rotation lower. So what I'll be looking for right now is how does price respond upon a retest of 49.20, 49.21. A push into that area could offer an opportunity to sell between 20 and 25, and that could lead to a move right back to 5-day VPOC, and that's 48.62. So right now we could be looking at a push right back down, especially given recent rejections at overnight VPOC. Any push through 49.25s opens up a move toward the upside buy targets. That could be a moving target right now given that new lows were just hit, but right now the primary upside target would be 50 evens, and the scaling would be 49.64 should price be able to push through those 49.25s. Right now, it appears the bears have it. All right, let's take a look at the gold futures contract in higher time frame. The last sell opportunity we talked about was right here on this rejection day. That was the rejection day where I said that looks like a good sell. We have a period of lower highs here, and that could push us back toward the primary and secondary weekly targets. We reached them, and it was all based off of this rejection tail right here. And then we looked at 1282s as an area to defend, and you can see price got into about 83s and then dropped. So this is important. And I mentioned any pullback could be a buying opportunity once price gets back toward the 2028 to 2029. So we're right below that area now. You can see actually rejected. So if price trades mostly below this level and can't hold above it, it'll be interesting if the next day we pop back above 29s, because that could begin the next push back toward 1265s. Otherwise, failure to get back above 1229s opens up a move likely back toward 1208 and perhaps 1205s. Let's take a look at the NQ. Here's the NQ in a daily time frame. I talked about the compression. You can see the major phase of compression we saw here. The previous session we saw expansion from that range, and that's what we talked about could be the case. I said this is a very tightly coiled range here. 4400 is very important. If we push through it, that could lead to a rally back toward the top of the recent range near 4550. And this was a significant expansion day here. So it took us from this micro composite, which is basically 4320s, and then took us through the top of that price distribution. And we have another price distribution just above it. Typically speaking, when that happens, price rallies right to the top of that recent range. So what I'll be looking for is how does price respond upon a retest of 4400. If price comes back to this zone, you would anticipate that bulls want to defend it and squeeze toward 4550. Failure to hold above that zone would auction prices back toward recent support at 4271. On an intraday basis right now, prices, obviously major trend day the previous session, major program driven trend day. Anytime you see minimal rotations, counter trend rotations, that tells you it's a dominant trend there, and you do not want to attempt to fade that type of day. You want to jump in, you want to hold on. Big time move. So right now what you're looking for is how is price going to respond around the overnight pivot, 4460 half. Failure to hold that level could open up a return to 4441. That could be an area, 4450 here, 4448, 4440s in general. That could be a zone where bulls want to defend short term, but any failure to hold above 50 in general or the previous close could open up a pretty big rotation back toward 4400. But right now, very impressive trend. Anytime you have a major trend day like we did in the ES and the NQ, the expectation, typically speaking, would be for a digestion day in the upcoming session. So keep in mind that if price can hold above 44.45s, we could see some sort of range develop as this thing builds energy for the next wave of strength toward those 45.50s. All right, that's it for now. Let's see how this thing plays out the rest of the session. Good luck and trade well.